assassination attempt. My worry is this is not going to be the last. It does seem like we are trending towards all of this vile rhetoric leading people to want to take this man out as if they would take out Hitler and save the world. To help me go through the second Trump assassination attempt, I have Jack Posobiec with me. Jack, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, Stephen, I appreciate you having me on. I wish it was under better circumstances or we had something a little more light and pleasant to speak about. But unfortunately, that's not the country that we live in at the current moment. And for all of those folks out there who say, oh, you guys are just, you're hysterics and you're going into wild speculation, when we said that there would be another Trump assassination attempt, or saying that, you guys are the ones responsible for creating all of this mess, et cetera, et cetera. Here we are again, looking at a situation where there was not just a single assassination attempt on President Trump during the election, but actually a second one that has potentially even darker red flags than the first one around.
Yeah, I agree. I was hoping to have you on to talk about ABC News rigging the debate in Kamala Harris's favor, but we're going to go into some deeper, darker stuff. So right out of the gate, Thomas Matthew Crooks was in a BlackRock commercial. His social media was wiped. He has connections to the FBI. We're not getting the full truth on that story. Now, Ryan Routh has been discovered to also be in a BlackRock TV commercial. His social media has been wiped, and he has tried to kill Donald Trump. What are the odds that both Trump assassins were in BlackRock commercials, and can you explain that?
Well, I haven't seen a BlackRock commercial for Ryan Routh. I saw the first one that you mentioned. The one that I've seen, and I posted to my X account last night, was actually a commercial that Ryan Routh did for the Azov battalion. Basically, they're this far extremist battalion in Ukraine, one that has direct ties to neo-Nazi ideology, one that's been extremely controversial, talked about a lot at the beginning of the war, one that, of course, Putin has brought up many times when he points out to say that Ukraine is full of Nazis, and denazification is something that the Russian state has used in their justification of the war in Ukraine. Here's an individual who attempted to assassinate President Trump. And yes, he is appearing in a movie for a video for them, an advertisement for them, this Azov battalion. But he's raising funds for them, it seems like. He's at events in Ukraine, by the way, on the territory of Ukraine, actually advocating for this battalion. The same individual, when he was on the ground in Ukraine, and of course we know that there are certainly a lot of ties between BlackRock and Ukraine, going for that Ukrainian black soil, which is a massive resource for the farmland of Europe. Of course, Ukraine being the vast majority of farmland within the confines of Europe that is not controlled by the EU. So it doesn't fall under EU regulations when it comes to things like GMOs. So again, you have some of the most valuable earth, some of the most valuable agricultural, arable land in all of Europe, not controlled by the EU. So GMOs could be allowed there. And obviously something where a lot of people have pointed out that BlackRock is going into Ukraine and buying up a lot of this farmland, or has designs to where they're able. This individual, Ryan Wesley Routh, also directly involved not just in supporting these units in Ukraine, but also potentially recruiting for them and serving in one himself, it seems, with the volunteer battalions as well as this International Legion. I've got reporting from my sources that he did receive combat experience when he was over there, training, as opposed to actually, as Tim Waltz would say, carrying weapons in war. I haven't received any reporting that he actually served or conducted any combat himself against the Russians, but that he did receive some basic field training from the Ukrainian military, from the International Battalion. And by the way, you can see evidence of this in those images that we received from the golf course in West Palm Beach late last night. These images of, if you look at the two backpacks, which are sort of held up next to each other on the fence line there, and people saying, why does he have two backpacks lined up? Well, what you can see is he appears to have placed ceramic tile inside, these large square ceramic tiles inside those backpacks, and he's using them as a sort of poor man's makeshift body armor, and he's using the body armor to create a sniper's nest for himself, whereby and we're told that the Secret Service agent identified him because the muzzle of the gun, the barrel of the AK-47 or the SKS, we're not sure exactly what type it was. SKS is a variant of the Kalashnikov, was sticking through the fence line, presumably between these two plate carriers. And so as such, it is also possible that if that's true, those plate carriers may have served their purpose, because we're told that the Secret Service agent opened fire, and I've heard the phrase exchanged fire over and over, though I'm not sure whether or not the would-be assassin did fire his weapon. I think that remains to be seen. But anyway, if fire was exchanged from the Secret Service agent and the plate carriers were up, and the ceramic tile potentially could have functioned as intended by deflecting those barrels or deflecting those bullets from him, from striking him. And we know that he was able to get into his car and drive 45 miles away, and he appears unscathed. He was in court this morning. Again, all of that strikes to the question of, did this guy receive battlefield training to be able to operate in those types of situations because of his experience in Ukraine? We are seeing this is not something that a would-be sniper, that a would-be domestic terrorist. Thomas Matthew Crooks did not employ tactics like this. Thomas Matthew Crooks climbed up on top of it, but now he had a drone, he had a rangefinder, he certainly used technology, but he didn't employ those type of battlefield tactics that we are seeing employed by Ryan Wesley Routh.
Okay, and I should have started this interview by telling my audience that you are a former naval intel officer, so you understand this stuff significantly better than I do. My understanding from
I'm in the same boat. I've had plenty of training. Didn't carry a weapon of war myself, nor have I ever claimed to, but I've had my fair share of training.
Yeah. My understanding from reading last night was that he was able to get off 4 shots. Now that could be wrong. Maybe the way it was written sounded like he got off shots, but maybe that was Secret Service. But okay. I wondered why he had.
Well, the media told us originally that it was just a couple of gangbangers out in town that were involved in some domestic dispute. When here it comes to find, just that story doesn't hold up for longer than an hour, because for the first hour, when we heard there were gunshots, people didn't even realize that this was an assassination attempt and it was a Secret Service agent. I was receiving phone calls from people close to the campaign, from people that were down there in West Palm Beach saying, no, this was not a gang related thing. This wasn't CNN. I think the New York Post even initially were trying to downplay this. I was receiving confirmation almost immediately, and I was like with my family at with the kids event, and they're saying this was a real assassination attempt, and the Secret Service was the one that opened fire. And so initially the New York Post, I saw a story saying, two people exchanged fire at each other, not at President Trump. Yeah, and one of them was a Secret Service agent. Kind of an important detail to get out there, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, even Kamala Harris posted on Twitter, I have been briefed on reports of gunshots fired near former President Trump and his property in Florida. I am glad he is safe. Violence has no place in America. That actually makes a little bit more sense if in her mind she's thinking gangbanger, because last night I was thinking, okay, shots fired in your vicinity, like they were shot at him. They were, this person was there specifically targeting Donald Trump to take out Donald Trump. They had portable snipers. They had Secret Service going 1 or 2 holes ahead, and that's how they were able to discover him. Now, this is what I want to understand. The FBI that went after grandmas that entered the Capitol on January 6th, the FBI that was given permission to raid Mara Lago with guns drawn if necessary. They're the ones heading up the second Trump assassination attempt investigation. But we already know that they're burying key details in the first investigation. They end up burning Thomas Matthew Crooks' body and don't tell anybody. Meanwhile, Congress is trying to get to the bottom of this. Do you have any kind of confidence that we're going to get the truth from the first assassination attempt and now the second assassination attempt?
Well, look, what I do is I don't think that we're going to get information if we just sit back and expect the government to hand it to us. And there's some good people in Congress that are fighting for it, but at the same time, we've got to keep fighting. So that's why myself and Joshua Lysek, we've taken together to put something together called the Bulletproof Project. And this is going to be released in a book later in October. It's actually the first book written about President Trump's first assassination attempt. And we stayed up late last night. I actually was on the phone with my publisher and said, look, I literally said, stop the presses. And if anything's printed, you just got to pulp it, because we have to include this information about the second shooting. So we've released the first book, or it's in pre-release right now. So you can pre-order it on Amazon, or if you want we're doing some special copies on orderbulletproof.com, signed copies and that type of thing, if people are interested in that. By the way, if anyone's listening who has pre-ordered it, don't worry, you will get the edition with all the information in it. We are making sure that's going to happen. Amazon likes to play little games with conservative books, but we're going to make sure that all of the information goes in this one. That said, though, because we took it upon ourselves to do that project, one of the things that we're using this book to fuel is we've hired our own private investigation firm. And our firm is currently looking into Western Pennsylvania, Bethel Park. They're looking into Thomas Matthew Crooks. This firm is conducting shoe leather reporting, shoe leather investigation. They're going to all potential sites that were associated with Crooks. They're investigating all potential leads, all potential associates, things that you're not hearing from the federal government, things that you're not hearing from the Secret Service or the FBI that have completely stovepiped this thing. Also, conducting, going in and doing the data analysis, buying consumer level data, seeing what device analysis we can do, similar to what Heritage did, but we're actually going even deeper than that in our analysis. And this is ongoing, by the way. This investigation will continue to be ongoing. So in the Bulletproof Project, we envision there to be multiple additions and multiple updates sent out as the investigation continues. And I'll just say that we had a conversation between the lead PI and myself earlier today. These are all licensed investigators, by the way, licensed PIs and detectives. And I said, look, the main thing we have to look at is this individual down in Florida and this individual up in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Were there any overlaps in their networks? So essentially what we're going to do is create that link diagram, a link analysis chart, was something I would do every day as an intelligence officer. And you go through all the known associates, you build that pattern out, you build out the pattern of life, and then you see whether or not there were any areas of overlap between the two shooters, whether or not there were any potential connections, and especially given the fact that this guy was going over to Ukraine, given the fact that we also know that Thomas Matthew Crooks had these foreign overseas encrypted accounts, the email account, the Discord server. Again, it just really starts to look like potentially there could be something there. Again, I'm not going to get over my skis and say that we have something if we haven't reported it yet, but I will say that if we do uncover any level of connection whatsoever, we are going to put it on our report, and we are going to make sure to get that out to people as fast as possible. Because no, I don't have confidence that we're going to get answers from the federal government, so we're doing it ourselves.
Okay. Wow. I look forward to getting that report. Let me just take a break, a quick commercial break. Hey, let me take 1 minute of your time to share something concerning. The US dollar has lost 26% of its buying power since Joe Biden got into office, and the stock market is getting shaky. That's why I've partnered with Colonial Metals Group to help you understand how to protect your money and your financial future. Being at the whim of the stock market or the current administration does not make me feel safe or secure with my money. But having a self-directed IRA where I can safely store gold and silver, assets that have stood the test of time, that makes me feel secure. Now, Colonial Metals Group has helped me create a self-directed IRA where I can get direct access to my assets. Let the team of experts at CMG help you protect your family's future. Their level of professionalism and ability to listen makes it easy to learn everything you need to know about preserving your wealth with gold and silver. Maybe you're just getting started, or maybe you already have a 401k or an IRA, or maybe you are in charge of keeping mom and dad's money safe. Everybody should have a portion of their money in gold and silver, and Colonial Metals Group can help with that. Now, we've put together a special offer for my community. Click now on the link below in the description or call the 800 number where you can receive a safe and up to $7,500 in free silver. Go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Gardner or check out the 800 number now. Protect your money and protect your future. All right, let's get back to the interview. Okay, so obviously, Ron DeSantis, Governor DeSantis of Florida, he shares your same worry, my same worry about, are we going to get the truth? Governor Ron DeSantis announced last night that the state of Florida will conduct its own investigation into the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump's life. This means that the FBI is going to have to work really hard to cover up any truth, or it will hold them accountable and we will actually get to the truth. The main question that Ron DeSantis said he wants to know is how on earth did this assassin get that close to the former president? Now, we've been told in a press conference last night from the sheriff and Secret Service that he did not have the protection that he normally would have because he's not the sitting president. Why on earth would they not have beefed up security after, I mean, it's not even been 60 days, I don't think, since the last assassination attempt. Why are they not giving him the adequate coverage?
And that's right, almost 60 days. I think 62 days actually. So 90. What did we? So 9/15 to 7/13. So almost exactly exact 62 or something days. So we're 2 months almost to the nose. The question is, of course, and the problem here is that the FBI continuously and is famous for stovepiping their investigations. When the FBI comes in, if you've got something that's local law enforcement, if it's sheriff, it's county, even if it's ATF, even the FBI is known as infamous for going all the way back to 9/11 for stovepiping any investigation that they're involved in. They do not play well with others. They like to big name. They like to foot stomp. They say, we will not share our information, our sources and methods. So you could be an ATF agent that's conducting an investigation. The FBI comes in, boom, it is gone. Everything absolutely vanishes. I will just say that I have confirmation of that from during my time in service, that I saw it with my own eyes, that when the FBI got involved in something, basically you'd be working on something one day and then the FBI gets involved and you go in the next day and you're searching the server for the files you were looking at. Everything's gone. Everything is completely wiped. And it's if it's not even there. And, you do that. It's like the movie scene where you go through the cable numbers and say, wait, here's 113, 114, 116. Wait a minute. Where's 115? And it's just gone, kind of situation. This is how they operate. This is what they do. So certainly I support Governor DeSantis and what he's doing, and I commend them for doing so. But at the same time, this is going to be stovepiped by the FBI. They're going to suck everything up into their mothership. That's why the pressure needs to be put on Chris Wray and Alejandro Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary of Homeland Security, because he's the one that controls the Secret Service. And the questions simply are, why was President Trump not given the level of security that he needs, knowing that his life was already in danger? And sure, people are saying, oh, well, it was the Secret Service agent who did encounter the sniper in the first place, therefore they did their job. That's not good enough. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. The drones should be up constantly. They're very cheap, by the way. It's easy to use. Local law enforcement uses them every day. There's no question. Whenever he's going out to golf, you should have a dozen drones that are flying ahead of him, scanning the area, looking for things like this, looking for individuals like suspicious cars that were parked alongside the street. We're told now for 12 hours. For 12 hours. So that means something like, again, this shooting took place at 2 p.m. Does that mean he was there from 2 a.m. the night before, the wee hours of the morning that he pulled up, hearing potentially or guessing or perhaps having some kind of secret knowledge that President Trump would be playing golf that day? Again, that we're told this was an OTR. This was not an on the record scheduled movement. That being said, President Trump does, play golf on Sundays, but he doesn't always play in the same place. So again, this is all information that is highly, highly suspect and needs to be investigated. And furthermore, if you've actually looked at the charges that the shooter was leveled with earlier this morning. Now, they couldn't get him. They haven't charged him yet with attempted murder. or assassination or any of these things. I believe those charges, of course, will come superseding. But something very interesting to me that occurred to me was that they charged him with possession of a firearm while a felon. So if he didn't have a legal right to have a firearm because he's a convicted felon, he had this gun charge from years ago where he was in a standoff with police, I think like 20 years ago, we're told, in North Carolina. And the AK-47 variant that was found on him had a obliterated, essentially a shaved off serial number. Where did he get the gun? And the direct question is, because he spent all this time in Ukraine, and this is a Kalashnikov, which is a Russian-style weapon, of course, that everyone knows is used on both sides in the Ukrainian war, then it stands to reason to ask the question, did he bring this gun back from the Ukrainian battlefield with him? And was he able to get that into the United States somehow? Again, a lot of questions that need to be answered, but it certainly has all the hallmarks of a blowback-style domestic threat, where something that the U.S. government, the CIA, the national security agencies were involved with overseas that has now reared its ugly head and come back to bite us here at home. Yeah.
I had, and maybe you've interviewed him too, but Steve Friend, former FBI agent, he told me in an interview one time that the FBI regularly labels things domestic terrorism as a cover to not have to share anything with the American people. It's literally just like puts a lid on them having to share anything. So, we're seeing that in Butler, Pennsylvania. Will we see that here? Only time will tell, but that's an interesting question. Independent journalist Nick Sorter over on Twitter, he posed the question, if this was a last minute golf outing by President Trump, that it wasn't on the public schedule, that they weren't informed, how on earth did Ryan Routh know to be there ahead of schedule and set up his little sniper nest right at a perfect place to get them as they came around the corner on that particular hole? I don't have an answer for that, but it is an interesting question that I hope we will get to the bottom of. Who tipped him off that he would be there? And how did he know to pick this particular spot? It's a great question. I wanted to go over something.
And by the way, that spot, I'm told, and this has been kind of lost in the sauce out there, but I'm told that he was within 1 or 2 holes from where President Trump was golfing. So depending on his proficiency, depending on the range, knowing the range of the Kalashnikov, he was potentially within 100 yards of being able to have line of sight and be able to take a shot at President Trump.
I mean, that's less distance than Thomas Matthew Crooks and
Ben. Well, no. I mean, what I mean to say is that it would have been further than Crooks, but the Kalashnikov having a range out to about 200, 300 yards. If President Trump had come within there, then he was very close to being within range.
Gotcha. Okay. I understand that better now. So, okay. So Eric Prince, the CEO of Blackwater, also a former Navy SEAL, he went on the Benny Johnson show, and he basically was like begging for Ron DeSantis and local authority to take over to protect Donald Trump's life. Let me run that snippet and then let's react to it together.
Say that the Palm Beach Authority should not cede all power to the feds here. And
no way.
Can you please expound on that? Because I have a feeling that that's going to be a large takeaway line here.
And even the governor of Florida should exert co-equal control on this. This happened in Florida's territory. The state governor has a direct interest in making sure this doesn't happen again in his state. Clearly, the federal government is incapable of doing these investigations if they're too political or too fraught with bias. So again, let the state government flex up, back the local government and say, enough, we want co-equal information on everything here. And I would not even turn that guy over to the feds until he has been thoroughly investigated, interrogated by the state and local authorities.
We've covered this extensively and had on members of the task force to investigate the Butler shooting. And they've come on this program, sir, and raged that all of the evidence was scrubbed, that the body was cremated, and that effectively they've been handed an empty bag by the FBI.
Yep. And exactly. And there's nothing that says the state government has to turn over any of this stuff to the feds. They can take a copy of everything that's on his phone, the registration of the vehicle, whatever DNA is in that vehicle, whatever DNA they might find on the shooter's rifle, all those things, a fully co-equal, fully transparent investigation run by the state of Florida.
Jack, do you think that Governor Ron DeSantis will have the authority or the firepower to demand what Eric Prince is saying? Because I think without that oversight and that extra set of eyeballs, the American people, it's going to be glossed over. I mean, for heaven's sakes, we just had the ABC event and it wasn't even brought up. Like, they just glossed right over the fact that we had a former president shot in the head, shot through the ear. What are your thoughts on
well, and by the way, not just glossed over, it was actually cut off. David Muir cut off President Trump when he brought up the fact that he had been shot by an assassin, that the bullet passed through his ear, as you mentioned. David Muir cuts him off and says, "Oh, we've got a lot to get to. We've got important things to get to, Mr. President. We don't have time to waste on the attempted assassination that took place on you. We were 1 inch away from Lord knows what, civil war, switching candidates, a completely different country, so many different things. Now you had one potential assassination attempt that could have caused a civil war. Now you have an assassination attempt that could have caused World War III, because we're in a situation where this guy was indelibly tied, as we said before, to Ukraine, indelibly tied to the fighting that was going on over there. And it doesn't take much to be able to see that. And obviously, by the way, the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, is already pushing out his information, saying that he believes that this guy was directed by Ukraine based on his connections over there. So clearly, the Russians are already using this in their rhetoric, and it stands to reason that the Russians would have had intelligence on this individual the same way that they have intelligence on all the foreign fighters and potential mercenaries that have gone over from the West to the Ukrainian battlefront, because that's exactly what their intelligence services have been tracking all along. And I'm sure, by the way, that there are Russian intelligence officers directly embedded in Kiev and in all of these foreign fighter outfits, because they want to know what's going on. Again, this is basic spycraft, that you spy on what the spies are doing. Then, as it pertains to what Eric Prince said there, look, I would love for Governor DeSantis to be able to do so. I don't know that he's going to be willing to get into that level of a Mexican standoff with the federal government in terms of this, keeping it. I believe it's already at it's at the, as we record this right now, I think it's at the local level, but I see this going to the federal level very quickly. And you're going to see a jurisdictional issue. You're going to see a federalism issue come up very quickly, because again, these are domestic terrorism charges. These are assassination of a former president. This is definitely going to go federal very quickly. And yes, they are going to lose custody of him the same way that the locals lost custody of the body of Thomas Matthew Crooks, which was then cremated before the local coroner even knew what was going on. I think the feds are going to sweep in and get up all of this. The one thing that I would say with Eric Trump, as pertains to President Trump, and I'm actually going to be interviewing Eric Prince in just a couple of minutes here, that President Trump needs to beef up his personal security. And it kills me to say this, but I can't in good conscience go without saying it. That includes the safety of his family, and including his son, who is currently attending school in New York City. That these people are potential targets when we know that there have now been multiple attempts on his life. Everyone knows that. And by the way, any billionaire knows that this is something. Go ask Elon Musk. This is something with all of his 10 plus children out there. He knows that executive kidnappings of CEOs have been going on around the world. And it's something that Elon Musk pays a lot of money and a lot of security to. Anyone who knows the way he operates, or anyone who's been in direct contact with him, knows that he has high-level, world-class security teams, because he knows that his children are the direct way to influence Elon Musk. This is someone also, by the way, who has a security clearance, et cetera, et cetera. So for President Trump, I think the threat is real. And unfortunately, for the next 50 days and beyond, as he continues, and I'm sure President Trump is not exactly the type of person who's known for quitting or surrendering. I think the entire world knows that. So there's no question in my mind that he's going to be continuing to hold his rallies. I'm sure he's going to hold outdoor rallies, and I'm sure he's going to continue golfing as well. He's not going to give this up. And so that being said, he must increase his security posture. And I certainly hope that Eric Prince is able to play a part in that.
Yeah. I can't, just last Friday, Melania released a couple of videos, and one of those was, she said that the investigation of the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting was basically like depressing her, right? That the fact that they aren't looking for the answers, that more information isn't coming out. I can't imagine yesterday she gets a phone call. Your husband has been taken to safety. He's been shot at again. I can't even understand what she might be feeling as a wife. I know my wife would be sick about it.
I spoke to my wife earlier today, also, by the way, an immigrant from Eastern Europe. She said that if this were you, I would be telling you to suspend your campaign. I would be telling you to stay home. I would be telling you not to go out there. And I kind of responded in the same way that I just did. And I would be saying back, I'm not going to do that, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember when I visited Ukraine 2 years ago, right around the same time frame that apparently this individual was there. I was in Lviv, then I went south to Odessa and Mykolaiv while he was up in Kiev. So he was in the capital city while I was down in the southernmost part of the country, at least as far south. I could see the ocean. It was pretty far south to see the Black Sea. And, I actually left my wife at the train station in Przemysl, which is right on the border between Poland and Ukraine on the Polish side, and kissed her goodbye, said, I'll be safe. Don't worry about it. I'll be home in a couple of days. And apparently that was the same train station where this individual, Ryan Wesley Routh, was conducting recruitment operations, and even has some interviews I remember looking at that and say, hey, I recognize that train station. I recognize those tracks. It was the very same spot.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. I think you probably saw this, but within hours of his arrest, suddenly his social media accounts started going down. A lot of internet, blue checks and anons were grabbing screenshots because they don't want, the history of this man's social media to disappear. Why would that stuff suddenly start going down? Is that the FBI trying to protect any kind of changes, or might that have been family member? I'm just trying to think why all of a sudden this assassin's social media accounts would start disappearing.
So typically that does come from federal government, and that does come from law enforcement. That's been something that has been a longstanding policy at Facebook. We weren't sure whether or not X would leave the account up, but it does look like there was a takedown order. Now, I certainly hope that if that's true, that X does hold on and retain the files. I also certainly hope that Facebook retains the files, because Mark Zuckerberg has come out there. And now, fortunately, Elon, by the way, I don't know if this is true, but it's very interesting that the X account stayed up much longer than the Facebook account came up. So this is just my own personal speculation, but something that I observed yesterday was that the Facebook account came down very quickly, but the X account didn't. And I wonder if it's possible, and I don't think he'd ever confirm this, but is it possible that when Elon, because you'd imagine that the federal order would go out at the same time, but I wonder though, if Elon heard about this and said, slow walk that. Don't put that request in yet. Just go as slowly as possible, because people were able to go in and screenshot and scroll and get as much information as they possibly could from his X account. However, the Facebook account went down almost immediately. And certainly I'd call on Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg to make both accounts public, because this is something where we know, by the way, that Mark Zuckerberg has talked about being more transparent. He says he doesn't want to play sides in this election. He says that he feels that though he was wrong about politics for the last 20 years. Well, now's a perfect opportunity to show us that you actually believe in what you said, Mark Zuckerberg, that you have the ability to stand to be measured. Let that Facebook account be public. Let's see who the direct ties were. Let's see what information is on there on Facebook. Who is he friends with? Who are his mutuals? Perhaps it's not, perhaps it's nothing derogatory, and in which case that's perfectly fine. But perhaps there is something else out there. And again, as I said before, this is something my private investigator and also I'm sure just the general public would like to know. Was there any overlap between these two shooters? That's something that we are certainly going to be looking at on my end.
Yeah. I know the Democrats don't want to hear this next story because it makes Donald Trump too human and too good as a human. But according to Sean Hannity, it was communicated to him that after Trump was taken to safety, the first thing that he did was ask if everybody was okay. Like, he wasn't concerned about himself. He wanted to make sure his golfing friend Steve and everyone there, the staff, Secret Service, that nobody was hurt or injured. What does that speak to the character of Donald Trump?
Well, look, this is something that, of course, we heard from President Trump as well, going back to the first rally that we depict in Bulletproof, that this is someone who is always putting the interest of others ahead of himself. This is someone who, even in that famous image that we all remember from throwing the fist up and being there, that was also a time where, and people have to think back, that hindsight, we don't have the benefit of knowing what we know now. So at that moment, President Trump didn't know that the threat had been cleared. He didn't know that there weren't other shooters. He didn't know that there was safe, or that anything was safe. He just knew that he wanted to reassure the people that he was okay. And in doing so, he certainly put himself in, quite literally, in the line of fire. He was willing to be able to do so to show people that he was okay and that he was going to keep fighting, even if it meant taking another bullet for the American people. And of course, he could have walked. The truck was right there. The Secret Service agents were attempting to push him in. He actually fights off the Secret Service agents. And if you look at the video, he almost makes it back to the microphone at one point. And you could see it looks like he wants to actually continue his speech. I think as folks may know, Teddy Roosevelt famously in his third presidential race did actually continue a speech in Milwaukee after being shot with of course, he was shot with a Derringer, so it wasn't quite as powerful as an AR-15, but he was shot and continued a speech. So I have to wonder if President Trump was interested in kind of continuing that legacy. By the way, Teddy Roosevelt, also someone who people don't realize originally became president because William McKinley was shot and killed by an anarchist assassin in Buffalo, New York in 1901. So just again, huge assassinations have played a huge part in American history, but so much of that history has been stolen from us in the form of woke education or just miseducation, etc. Because how many people have even heard that an anarcho-socialist shot and killed a U.S. president back in 1901? Again, we had communist infiltration in this country for over 100 years. It's been going on. It's real. And now our presidents and our candidates are being shot at multiple times along the campaign trail. And so, look, folks, I would have loved to say that I was wrong when I wrote the book on humans about the rise of communism. I wish I was wrong to say all the things that I had said about the potential blowback from these Ukraine operations. And yet here we are, we're talking about it. And I wish I had been wrong. I wish I'd been wrong all these times, but it looks like, unfortunately, this is our reality now.
Okay. Yeah. I did not know that. So yeah, that history was kept from me. It now
Leon Czolgosz.
Yeah, it now makes sense why President Trump said on the Lex Friedman podcast, being president of the United States is one of the most dangerous jobs.
It's true.
Now,
it's true. You look at 4 presidents killed out of what, 40? Well, I guess depends on the account. Are we at 46 now or 47?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so you have the new book coming out, Bulletproof. I'm going to make sure to put a link for that. You also have Unhumans that came out that was wildly successful. And then you are going to be on the stage with Tucker Carlson. I was able to go to the Tucker Carlson Glenn Beck here in Salt Lake City, Utah.
That looked great. I watched that entire thing.
Yeah, it was amazing. So many cool stories. The crowd went wild. The energy was just so loving and positive. It was amazing. Tell us about the event that you have with Tucker Carlson this coming week.
Well, so we're actually going to be 1 week from now, September 23rd. I'm going to be on stage with Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones, as well as a special guest in Reading, Pennsylvania. And this is a big one for me because I grew up about 20 minutes away from Reading, Pennsylvania. So this is kind of like my, kind of like my hometown homecoming in a lot of ways. My entire family is going, and even the extended family, cousins and aunts and uncles, and my kids will be there. My wife and my parents will be there. So it's a huge event. And, I was hoping for it to be positive as well. And I'm sure it will have a positive outcome. But that being said, given the fact that President Trump had shots taken at him in Butler, Pennsylvania, just 2 months ago, and now shots again ring out at his golf course, I'm sure that's going to be one of the major topics of conversation. But if anyone wants to go that, it's Reading, Pennsylvania, September 23rd. You go to Ticketmaster or just tuckercarlson.com. You can find all the information on the tour. And this really is the hottest tour. It's the hottest tour that doesn't have Donald Trump in it. Although, I think you might have some other special surprises that come up that day. Just put it that way.
Cool. Okay. Well, I know a couple days before that, RFK Jr. was a surprise guest, I believe, in either California or Phoenix, Arizona. Well, Jack, I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you giving us time last minute. This was a last minute interview, and I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to put those direct links down below. Can I also put a link to Twitter or X so that people can follow you there?
Yeah, sure. X at Jack Posobiec. People see me there. And the book is up Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or you can go to orderbulletproof.com if you want signed copies and, special editions, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your day.